owner's fees to be determined at a later date. This meeting is intended to answer questions that you may have as to the financing and operation of this park under a co-op. The handout you received is the first part of our promised information to all homeowners. Unfortunately, the questions were not submitted in the right format early enough. We missed Martin before he went on vacation. His first week back from vacation, he has answered or approved my answers to the first 19 questions. Additional questions and answers will be published next week. They will be included in the Villager's Voice, along with today's handout will be added to that. Those that are up north that did not receive the Villager's Voice, we are going to attempt to have a mailing that will cover everyone. This is not, I repeat, not a high-pressure sales meeting. We're simply presenting facts and the opportunity of being an early founding member. And this allows you to receive the extra $1,000 bonus with a $1,000 deposit. The early founding members, however, are being asked to allow $150 of their fee to be non-refundable. This is the money we'll use for the due diligence for our surveys, engineering, etc. We do not wish that anyone feel that there must be a member of the co-op. All current renters may continue to rent at existing rents or less. With that, I introduce Martin Simpson of the Lee Collins Conversion Service. One other item, I do have the cordless mic, and once he's finished, if you have questions, raise your hand, and I'll bring the mic to you.
Well,
Tom.
get one of these when they come in, raise your hand and I'll get it.
Yeah, there was a little misunderstanding. They didn't have all those on the table, but if you missed one, raise your hand, you'll get it.
Put your hand up and get you.
If they give a chance to ask questions, go through yours and highlight the most important ones. We'll split them up. I got a copy too.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out on this very sunny and hot Saturday afternoon. Appreciate that. For those of you that have not seen me before, my name is Martin Simpson. I've been working with Lee J. Collins for about 20 years now. And AJ and Lee have not been able to attend today. They're both out of town. In fact, they're both on vacation. This is the time where we would normally take some time away because most of you guys go on vacation or back home or whatever. But this was the first time that we had to be able to get together after the pledge requirement was made. And so we wanted to get to you as soon as possible to explain what was going on. I think everyone in the room is aware of the fact that 17 years ago this park was sold, and at that time, according to Florida law and according to a document that the then park owner had also signed, it was supposed to be first offered to you guys, to the residents of the park. Well, they omitted that little detail, and when we found out about it in early '98 was when Lee filed the first lawsuit to say, hey, you have to give the residents an opportunity to vote. And as you probably now know, we've been fighting for 16 years in order to try and get that opportunity. I guess the good news is that during those 16 years, Lee and AJ and I have been working on what's known as a contingency basis, which means we haven't been charging any fees at all, because we were really sort of ticked off when this happened back in '97. And I had no idea, obviously, at that time, this was going to take so long. Anyway, back in February, the circuit court judge, Judge Hayes, finally said, okay, you, the residents, do have the right to buy the park. And if you want it, you're going to have to pay $14.4 million instead of $11.6, which was the original price back in '97. And then there were a few other details that had to be sorted out. Subsequently, appeals have been filed by both sides because of the details that were left out by the Circuit Court judge. From our perspective, as you might understand, we would much prefer $11.6 million instead of 14.4 in order to save you guys $3 million. And the other thing was that the current owner of the park told the court that, oh yeah, you know, thank you very much, Judge, so to speak. I will do what I believe is best now that I've heard that I'm supposed to sell it. But by the way, I have a $23 million mortgage now on this park. What are you going to do about it? So that's another item we're appealing. Because obviously, from our perspective, the original park was not sold with anything like a $23 million mortgage. In fact, way back then, the total price was $11.6 million. Period. So, we now have a situation which is unusual to me, and probably to you, which is that we have a court decision to move ahead, but appeals filed. From my perspective, that would sort of be obvious that while the appeal is being, we're waiting for an answer on the appeal, everything else would have, I thought, be put into stasis. Just, hey, you can't do anything when you don't actually know what the final answer is going to be because both sides are appealing it. You have to wait till that has been concluded. But I am told by the lawyers, and Bob told you I am not a lawyer, that no, the court said during the hearings that you, the residents, have to demonstrate that you're ready, willing, and able to purchase the park. And you can argue all day that you're going to wait for the appeal, but I want to know now. So that's when we said, oh, geez, no, okay, what did it require? Well, I expect you to raise some money. I expect you to get loans. Okay, so we've negotiated now with 3 different banks. One of them, by the way, has made us an offer, and it's a pretty good one. They've offered to lend us $14 million of the 14.4, assuming we didn't have to borrow that. But we still have a lot of other costs and expenses. You're aware, as I just told you, that the lawyers have been working on this for 16 years, and they have what's known as a contingency fee agreement, which means that they don't charge anything as long as they get a healthy reward at the end of it. And so their fees are literally running in the millions of dollars now. And that sounds like a lot of money until you realize that the defendant, the current park owner, has also spent several $1 million in cash, actually from the income that he gets from the park, to hire his attorney. But we realized way back when, particularly Lee, who's been an attorney for homeowner associations for 30 years, that there are some times when you guys just can't afford those sort of numbers, and so he volunteered to do this on a contingency basis. But at some point in time, we're going to have to pay that piper. We're going to have to come up to a final settlement with the attorneys to what the fees are going to be, and somehow include that into the costs of owning this community. So what does that mean for you? Well, lots of ways you can look at that. 14.4 is more expensive than we'd like, but we're going to wait for the appeal to come out. So what is the park worth if you could buy it today? Our current appraiser's opinion is that it's worth around $29 million right now, with all the rent problems. By rent problems, you are much more aware of this than I personally, in the sense that for years, a lot of you have been withholding rent. If you take the opinion that this is worth what he should get from rent, which is about approximately $700 per home. And even allowing for the fact that, for whatever reason, there are now 42 vacancies. The value of this park actually is about $43 million. Now, there are lots of arguments as to whether or not the residents of this community truly want to own the community, and we can discuss that if you want to. But as a finance guy, if I'm ever given the opportunity to buy something for 14 or preferably $11 million that's worth 30 to 40 million, I usually think that is a good idea. It's not just the value, however. What you're looking at is when you own your own community, as a co-op, resident-owned community, you're looking at the ability to actually control your own destiny. You make the rules, you enforce the rules. There's no selective reasoning here now. Your own people. The shareholders vote their own board of directors, and the board of directors are responsible for telling the management company what to do. Believe me, it's a lot better when you don't like what's happening to tell the manager what you expect of them, and if they don't do it, fire them. We have now, we being Lee and I, with our conversion company, and by the way, we're joint partners in that company, we've now converted about 30 different parks, a total of about just over 10,000 homes. Every single one of those is now running very well. They're able to control the rents much better than a for-profit company because they don't have to make any profit. All they're trying to do is keep the cost down. And usually what happens is there's a lot of volunteer help. They don't need to spend the same sort of money on returns for any investors. Just need enough money to be able to run the park. In fact, probably for the very first time in its history, there'll be money set aside every year and put in a bank account to use for capital improvements and major repairs to your community if you go ahead with it. We now have to go back to the fact that the judge has said, prove you're ready, willing, and able. The second pledge, what I call phase 2, we've already had the first round. That was the $500 pledge, it was back in 2009. And then we had 304 people give us $500 or more. We asked if that could be accepted, and basically the answer was, no, that was 2009. I want to know what happens now. When I say I, I'm talking about the court. So what we've said now is, look, we need to raise enough money to demonstrate to the court. So what sort of money do we need? Basically, the first deposit, assuming we have to pay the higher price of $14,400, I'm not saying we will or have to, would be $162,000. That is fully refundable if we decide not to purchase the park. So that always comes back to us if we make a decision. After all the due diligence and inspections, we just don't want to do it. I'll explain later, if you have questions on that, why we might do that. But sometimes we'll find such major problems with the sewer and water or something like that, that it's not worth buying. And we'll actually tell the residents, don't buy it. Or let's say advise the residents. Because ultimately the board of directors elected by you are the ones that make the final decision. The other thing we've got to deal with is the fact that the appeals has not slowed down the process. So we're still expected to move forward. And so we have a survey. We have an environmental engineering report, and we have an appraisal. All of these cost money. Currently, we're looking at a total estimate of about $30,000 for those. We've already got the quote for the survey at $13,000, and we have got estimates on the other two, the engineering report and the appraisal of 7 and 10 respectively. So that that's the $30,000. So when you add 30